Hey everyone, a new version of OpenRCT2 has been released, and it's version 0.4.17. And the developers have decided to name it I Wonder Where That Fish Has Gone.
I wonder where that fish has gone.
Alright, in this video I will take you through some of the most exciting changes and additions that have been added in this version of OpenRCT2. Alright, first off, a new translation for the game has been added. So if you go to options and here under the stopwatch icon, here you can select the language that you want to play in. And now we can also find Galego here, which is the regional language in the Galicia region in Spain. Now, if the language you want to play in is not in this list, you can apply to become a maintainer of a language. Then you'll be asked to translate all the texts that are in the game. And then whenever new texts are added, you'll be notified and you can add the new words to the game. So that may be a great way to help out OpenRCT2 if your language is not in the list yet. Okay, next up, the classic wooden twister coaster has been added to OpenRCT2. You can find it over here. It says here below, classic wooden twister roller coaster. And in the object selection, you can find it if you enable the filter for added attraction. And then here you should see the articulated roller coaster trains with a classic wooden twister roller coaster. Now, the reason this has been added, I believe, is because I put the three wooden coaster types right next to each other. Let me quickly disable the rain. So here you can find the classic wooden coaster. Here you can find the roller coaster tycoon wooden coaster. Here in the middle there's the wooden twister roller coaster. Now as you can see, the bank angles of all these tracks is slightly different. The classic wooden coaster has the shallowest angle. The wooden twister roller coaster has an angle that's a little bit less shallow. And the roller coaster tycoon wooden coaster has the steepest bank angle. Now, and since the classic wooden twister coaster also comes with its own vehicle, these also have the bank angle that corresponds to this track type. Now, if you now, for example, open a scenario that has the wooden twister coaster, let's for example take Haunted Harbor, it should now also use the bank angle that corresponds to the wooden twister coaster type, and any other minor changes that may be in the track type as well. Alright, speaking of wooden coasters, well, normally you cannot build boosters on wooden coasters. So if I go in the special menu, you won't find anything like that. But if we go into the cheats and we enable all drawable track pieces, now we are able to build a booster. So this is for the Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 wooden coaster. And these booster sprites have also been added now to the classic wooden twister coaster and the classic wooden roller coaster. The Roller Coaster Tycoon wooden coaster already had them, but the other ones now also have them. Alright, next up we have an update which a lot of people have been waiting for a long time. And that's that new inversions and track pieces have been added to the twister coaster. Now here you can see some of the new track pieces that have been added. Here you can see a medium half loop. The large 0G roll has been added, small 0G rolls. We now have inline twists on the B&M twister coaster if you like them. We also have large corkscrews, and we also have these larger turns in the banked and in the unbanked version. Now please be aware that the standard trains for this coaster type, they don't actually have sprites for the large 0G rolls and the small 0G rolls, so if the trains travel through them it will probably look a little bit clunky. But for these large turns and for the large corkscrews and this inline twist and the medium half loop, they should traverse those elements without any problems. Now normally these new elements, at least the ones the vehicles and the sprites for, will be locked behind a cheat. So here you'll have to select enable all drawable track pieces. It may work if you use a custom train that actually has sprites for these elements. Then maybe then maybe these elements will actually show up in a list while you're building the coaster, even if the cheat's not enabled. Now, for the vertical drop coaster, now you can also, without cheats, build the medium half loop if you want. And also these large turns have been added. And for the flying coaster, you can now also build these large turns, but only for the track style where the vehicles are above the track. And for the hyper twister coaster, you can also use these large turns. Alright, for the next change, the way that these coasters are ordered is changed slightly. Now, for example, we now have the classic wooden coaster and the classic wooden twister coaster right before the wooden coaster. The LSM Launch Coaster has gotten a spot between the hyper twister coaster and the Galego coaster. And several other coasters have been moved to different spots as well. You can find the full changes to this in the link that is in the changelog for this item. Okay, then there's another nice little change. If we build an LSM Launch roller coaster and we now make a diagonal turn, now we can also add boosters on the diagonal if we want. And I think that's a really neat change. It was quite restrictive to only be able to place boosters on a straight track section that followed the grid. But I really welcome this change. Now, diagonal breaks are not there yet, but someone is working on them, and I think they should almost be ready to also be placed in the game. So we'll probably see those in the next release. Okay, there's another track type which has gotten several new track elements, and that's the boat hire. Now, previously you were only limited to these tight turns, but you now also have these turns which are a bit wider. You have these large turns, and you even now have these diagonal turns, and you can even build the track diagonally if you want. And that's not all, you even have S-bends now. So I think if you like to use track for your boat hires, this will make it much more interesting. Okay, this next change will be something that may change the way you play the game in the future, especially if you're a sandbox player like me. Now, something which you're probably all familiar with is that in some cases the game may actually glitch objects, especially if there's multiple objects on the same tile. As you can see here, I overlayered some bushes, and as these go-karts are passing by, you can see lots of glitching going on. This can also happen if you have made a building with several layers and guests are walking under it or a vehicle passes through, then you may also see glitching. And that's because the algorithm that the game uses for sorting these objects, it's not stable. Sometimes it puts a different object on top when a vehicle passes by, for example, and that's why you see the glitching. Now you can also see this building looks kind of weird. I overlaid some walls and some blocks here. And there's actually also a shop inside, which you now cannot see. Now, the developers have looked into making this algorithm for drawing objects more stable, but there's a side effect to this, and that's that this algorithm also makes it that some of the objects are drawn in a different order. So that will mean that if you use the new algorithm to look at an old save game, things may look differently. Now, for now, you're able to toggle this new algorithm by yourself if you want. If you go under Options, and then under the wrench icon, you can select Enable Debugging Tools. And then over here, you'll find the option to show Paint Debug window. And then here, this little window pops up. And here at the bottom, you can now find Stable Sort. And if we enable it, you can see this building now looks different. I can actually see the shop inside. And this block also is now visible completely. But you can also see now that these bushes here no longer glitch when a vehicle passes by. Now, there's a good chance that this algorithm will be used in the future for new save files, so if you start a new park. But the developers are still looking into the way, into the best way to do this. And they want to do it in such a way that old parks are not affected by this, and old parks still use the unstable sort, so you don't see them differently. But yeah, for now you can try out this new functionality yourself, and there's a good chance that this stable sort will be what will be used at some point in the future for all newer parks. But yeah, that will mean that if you're used to building some kind of way, you may have to order your blocks in a different way. So if you go in Tile Inspector, you may have to place your blocks in a different order for them to show up or not to show up. But glitching should severely be reduced. Now you can help out the developers by enabling the debugging tools and already trying out the stable sort for yourself and seeing if it functions correctly, or maybe you can find some edge cases where it completely messes up. So yeah, please go and try out this function. Okay, for the next change I will just go to the OpenRCT2 GitHub, and here you can find an issue page, and it's for several paths that have been misplaced in some of the original scenarios. For example, here you can find a path where the railing over here suddenly is a different type. So several of these things have been fixed in this new release. Here's a missing path tile. I believe this is the Alton Tower scenario, so this has been fixed. And several more scenarios you could find some of these missing tiles or wrong railings. So those should no longer bother you as a scenario player. And if you find any more of these instances in a scenario, please make a new issue for it so the developers can fix them. Okay, since the new save file format was introduced with the park files for OpenRCT2, cheats that were enabled were saved with the save game. So if I turn on a cheat and then save the game and then load it again, the cheats should still stay on. However, one cheat I think was missed for this functionality, or it didn't really work properly, and that was the force park rating scenario. But when you enable this cheat now and you save the game and you load it again, it should still be enabled and it should now function correctly. Alright, the next issue was an issue with the stand-up coaster, and that's that several of the sprites, mostly diagonal track, didn't line up properly with each other. And as you placed these roller coaster track pieces, you could see some gaps between the track, and that of course doesn't look very nice. So in the new release, these tracks have now been moved to the correct height, and they should now once again line up with each other. Now, similarly, there was an issue with some of the supports for the stand-up coaster that didn't really touch the track, and you could see things through the gap. And these supports now should have been moved so that they once again touch the track. You cannot see anything through the gap. There should no longer be a gap there. Alright, for this next change I quickly logged into a server, and it used to be that if you, in options, if you had uncapped FPS enabled, which basically makes the game look smoother for you, then the game could actually desync, which is never a nice thing. So now you should be able to stay connected and stay synchronized with the server, even if uncapped FPS is turned on. Alright, the next one is something which Marcel Vos found out about, and basically what he noticed is that the way the favorite ride of a guest is calculated was actually different in OpenRCT2 than it was in vanilla RCT2. And I'm not going to explain here how calculating the favorite ride of a guest works in OpenRCT2, since Marcel basically just did an entire video on that. But the way it is now in OpenRCT2 should make it so that it's once again the same as in vanilla RCT2. Okay, and finally, the way that some of the color remappings are done for some of the vehicles from Wacky Worlds and Time Twister, or the stand-up coasters. Some of that has been changed a little bit. You can read the details in the link in the changelog. Alright, that's going to be it for this video. I'll leave a link to the changelog in the video description. Now, if this video is useful for you, please like this video. It would really help out my channel. I would love to hear in the comments what you think of these changes. And if you want to stay updated whenever there's a new release, you can always subscribe to this channel. Alright, hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you again in the next one. See you later.